The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening to the Brandon Peters Show. Today invites you to a conversation on the 1994 film The Crow. To join me for that, I'm excited to have return to the show freelance writer whose work you've seen in such spaces as Esquire and InStyle, and the creator and host of the Adult Spelling Bee, Danielle Sepulveres.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Glad to have you return. I had one of my favorite conversations on Working Girl last time, so
Yes.
I was like, oh, instantly on the welcome back. Actually, pretty much all my guests are welcome back. I haven't had a bad one yet, so
That's always good to know.
that's pretty good. Not in case any of them are listening or like, hey,
I thought I was your favorite, Brandon.
yeah, they all hear that, but some of them more than others, but we'll keep that to me. But yeah, so how have you been?
I've been good. I have been working a lot, but I've also managed to, I don't know, this year I've found a better balance, I guess. I think last year was just survival mode, obviously. And this year with things opening back up and going back to work and the world becoming more accessible in ways again that it wasn't, makes me feel a little bit more focused, a little bit more inspired, a little bit more motivated, I guess. It's nice to feel that way because last year I think we were all just kind of like, I don't know when this ends. I don't know what's coming next for any of us. So it's, as much as we are not, out of the woods just yet, it does feel like we're attaining some sense of normalcy, and with that has come some of my creativity back. So that is nice.
That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. I'm trying to figure out how to mold mine into the new, like, it's like, you can't be in your basement all the time, dude. Now you have to do things and stuff outside, but so we'll be morphing this show to somehow fit it. But yeah, I get you. Any interesting, cool projects you're allowed to discuss at all, or?
Well, my book that came out 10 years ago is in some very early development stages. So I can talk a little bit about that because it's so early that, it's sort of at the point where it's exciting because you're like, yay, like someone's interested in making this into something, another medium of this original format. But also it's so early that there's no article and deadline announcing it just yet.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, still exciting.
Yeah. So, hopefully, and I know development for anything can take a long time. So here's hoping that, an actor wants to attach to it that, really takes to the book or the pitch attached to the book and is like, hey, I want to play like this character. So, because those kind of things tend to speed it along as far as I understand it, because this is all a little new for me too. So, so here's hoping anyone who it's being sent to, their manager / agents and people, I hope you see a character that you'd like to play so that we can do this.
Gotcha. It's kind of like a joke I heard a long time ago about the movie Phantasm 2, which replaced its lead. And there's this joke about these execs sitting there and some guys pitching the Phantasm, we gotta make the sequel to this obscure 70s movie, and like, oh, but we're do this, and it's like, we have commitment from James LaGrosse, and we're like, oh, green light.
That's amazing.
It's like James LaGrosse, even in his prime, wasn't like,
Yeah.
like I always say that in his prime he was the guy that they'd get Brad Pitt because they couldn't get James LaGrosse, and then James LaGrosse was gotten because they couldn't get Brad Pitt for a while. They like crossed at some point.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
But yeah, Phantasm 2, which is still sweet, even though, it's the one without the main guy reprising his own role, but
Rising his own role.
it's still bombed. So, hey, it mattered.
So hey, sometimes we love the bombs in retrospect anyway.
Gotcha. Yeah, true. And you've been able to get out and get to those Mets games. I enjoy your coverage. I'm not even a Mets fan, but the excitement.
Yes. My friend Meg actually was just tweeting about the difference between Yankees fans and Mets fans. And then she was saying, by Danielle's metric, though I'm not even a Mets fan. And I was like, Meg, you're totally a Mets fan. I just have sickness.
Gotcha. Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, that's fine. I haven't seen the Mets. I saw the Mets play against the Reds back in like the 90s when I believe Sid Hernandez was pitching.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he hit on my mom.
He hit on your mom?
Yeah.
That's
Got
amazing.
Yeah, got an autographed baseball, but at the time, I don't know where it's at. But like she would like I was like, hey, and he was not paying attention, not
You're
paying. And my mom came in, I was like, sup? Yeah, because he was warming up and then
like, hello, Brendan's mother.
Well,
Here you go,
hello, lady. Yeah. So
that's funny. I went to a book signing for Keith Hernandez.
Oh,
and,
okay.
I brought my dad. It was like a Father's Day weekend thing, and because my dad's a huge Mets fan, huge Keith fan, and I had met Keith briefly like a month before that, although I didn't think he'd remember. And then as we were signing books, he was sort of looking at me, and I was like, "Hi," I'm like, "We met a month ago. You probably because you meet so many people all the time." And he was like, yeah. And I don't know if he actually did remember it or was just being polite. But he made some comment about like how nice I looked, or like something about like my outfit looking nice. And, signed our books, we took pictures and we left. And, I brought my dad back home, and my mom was there, and she's just because like she's had a lifelong crush on Keith, because she was used to go to Mets games with my dad when Keith was like in his heyday, and he was like hot Keith Hernandez.
Right.
And my mom's like, "Did you meet him? Did you talk to him?" And she's all excited. And my dad, who hadn't said anything like the whole ride back, goes, "Yeah, I think he was hitting on your daughter." And my mom goes, "Oh my God, did you give him your number?" And I'm like, "Mom, he's literally your age."
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to date a parent. No.
It was really funny. But he was very respectful. And he was very nice. Actually, all 3 times that I've met him now, and the 3rd time I met him, he also didn't remember the first 2, but he was just as nice as he was the first 2 times I met him. So Keith is a very stand-up human being and gives very nice compliments.
Gotcha. That's wonderful. All
Yeah.
right. Well, are you ready to talk about The Crow?
I'm ready to
All
talk.
right. Cool. Well, The Crow is directed by Alex Proyas, written by David J. Show and John Shirley, based on the comic series by James O'Barr, and it stars Brandon Lee, Michael Wincott, Ernie Hudson, Rochelle Davis, Bai Ling, David Patrick Kelly, Michael Massey, Joe Polito, and the great Tony Todd. It's about a man brutally murdered who comes back to life as an undead avenger of his and his fiance's murder. You just mentioned me before this. This is like top 5 for you all time.
Yeah. Top 5.
Let me hear this.
You know what? It's such a tight script, and it's so well executed. Like everything about it. Like I know I was telling you before that I just rewatched it again. I try to watch it a couple times a year in general, but because I think about it so much, like you do with your favorite movies. Like certain scenes pop in your head, certain things of dialogue, and Brandon Lee is so perfectly cast as Eric Draven / The Crow, and it's God, it's just this like perfect revenge film where it's you kind of, the first time you watch it, you're not totally sure where it's going. You're like, he's going after these people and he's going to kill
Right.
all these people. But spoiler alert, in the end, like you have these great fight scenes and you have these great shootouts, but the fact that he kills, what's his name, Michael Wincott, right?
Hmm.
That's the
Right.
main baddie. The fact that he kills him by literally just instilling him with the memory of all the trauma and all the pain of what he caused
Hmm.
is so, I don't know, it's something that makes it a little bit different than your typical like movie based on a
Oh
comic book,
yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
And because you always get the fight out to the death, and you always get like the sword fight or the gun fight or the good old fashioned like beating each other with your fists. And so I really like that moment where he uses the memory that actually Ernie Hudson had, that
Yeah.
he saw through Ernie, that he kept and then used it to save his life. Well, to sort of, he was already dead, but you know what I mean, to
Yeah.
like to sort of save his life enough to like get back to the cemetery.
Right, right. I mean, it's like supernatural death wish, but instead of just like going and just kill. I mean, he kills the whole gang, but like they're idiots or whatever, and he gets to
Yeah.
the head of them, and he's really like, "This is what you did." Like, it
Yes.
really feels like someone getting their justice, their
Uh-huh.
comeuppance, their judgment, their everything, and feeling it, which is more than just stabbing or shooting. And
Right.
yeah, it's much
Yeah.
deeper than that.
It is. It's, yeah, and it's so satisfying. Like you just said, like there's just something about that you're like, yes, this is justice. This is, and you just feel like in the end you're happy that they're clearly like reunited
Hmm.
in death, him and Shelley. But they're the girl, their skateboarding little
Yeah.
teen punk that they keep an eye on. um, I feel sort of like sad for her, because she's like all alone in the world. That's one of the things I love about the cinematography in it, is that it shows this very lonely city, and this
Yeah.
very dark and very, scary and unsafe city. Um, and she's just like, wheeling around in it, and she had these two people who looked out for her, and then they were both gone like in an instant.
Mhm.
And she has her drug addict mother who, that was also kind of a wild scene. I still remember the first time seeing that, when he holds her arm and I'm like, what is he doing? What's he doing? And like the drugs come back out
Okay.
of her arm.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so wild, this movie. Um, and but I mean, he kills Fun Boy.
Right.
But he saves Darla, and is like, your daughter is out on the streets and she's looking for you.
Mhm.
And it's wild that he's this superhero in a way, and that he's righting wrongs and like killing the bad guys, but he's also like somehow has like the mind control to like set this woman straight and be like, what are
Right.
you doing? Like, take care of your daughter, because I was doing it, but I'm not here anymore.
Yeah, he can save as much as he can avenge as well. Like,
Yes.
it's
um and I love, there's so many scenes that are just like perfect in like different ways.
Mhm.
And I was trying to think before this, what my favorite scene is. And it's, which is really hard. It's sort of one that converges into a second one, and it starts with when he goes to the pawn shop,
Oh, yeah.
and he's questioning that sleazy pawn guy, and he's like really about to torch the place, and the guy's like, take whatever you want, and he's like, thank you. But like, because he's not interested in that. But it's just, he just nailed this, sort of those like moments of levity where someone's about to die and he's completely in control, and but
Mhm.
also just, I don't know, he's just a little bit irreverent about it, like, you're gonna die, you contributed to the death of so many people, or like all this stuff in your case was stolen from good people by
Yeah.
criminals, and you encouraged that, you supported that. um, and then when he leaves and Ernie Hudson pulls up and they sort of interact for the first time, and Ernie Hudson is like, um, what does he say? Oh, he goes, move and you're dead. And he goes, and I say I'm dead and I move. And it's just like, it's almost poetic,
Yeah.
just the way that plays out, because like almost immediately, like Ernie Hudson is like, knows like not to shoot him for some reason, and like doesn't. And
Right.
they have that whole conversation, and he's like, sit over there, and and he does, but then he completely disappears. But um it's so, I don't know, like I love that introduction of him. It's like they always say with what's his name? Gordon and Batman,
Right.
and how they become allies. Like it has like that feel of where, they do
Yeah.
this little dance with each other, and then they realize that they can, that they can work together. Um and yeah, I think that's my favorite. And then probably my second favorite is when he shows up to that meeting and jumps on the table where
Oh
they're all
yeah.
sitting at the table, and like that like goes into complete chaos. Like that's a really fun scene.
Oh yeah. There's a scene like that that opens up the Punisher War Zone. If you've seen that, or
Yes.
yeah. So I wonder if well, it was probably lifted from a comic, but still.
That's-
But yeah, that's really, and Lee, you mentioned in that scene where he's talking about I'm dead and I move and whatever, like you really see him turning a corner as like someone who could carry a movie and had some charisma that I've seen some of it, like Showdown Little Tokyo. I love it, but he's not really jumping off.
yeah.
He's okay as a goofy foil to Dolph Lundgren in that movie, but he really wasn't captivating. And this movie was
Mhm.
possibly going to be straight to video when he was alive shooting it. And
Yeah.
then they started and they're like, I think he can care. I think they can do this theatrical. So it switched gears, got a little more money, and then he died. And then Paramount all of a sudden said, we're not going to do this anymore. And then Miramax came in and saved it
Yeah.
to get finished. But they were, it wasn't going to be straight to video based on what he had done before. But he really comes to life in this movie about a dead guy. So it's kind of,
That is, it's really just, and some of the scenes, because rewatching it now, because I've been looking at it through sort of like a different lens, I guess, as an older person versus the first few times I watched it so many years ago. Because yeah, like it came out in 1994.
Mhm.
So I was God, I guess I was like 13 when it came out. 13 turning 14, something around there. And so to me, it was just at that age, it's more just like, oh, it's an action movie,
Mhm.
and where like the good guy wins, kind of thing, just like a very basic understanding of what's going on in the movie.
Yeah.
And then, as you get older and view it as someone who's worked their way through the world a little bit, and the assault part like hits a little different, and it because it's, I mean, it's graphic and yet not, like, compared to certain things that you've seen, like, because they don't show her.
Right.
They just like sort of like you understand what's going on,
Yeah.
but they don't show her, which I think was actually a very good choice, if you're going to go that route. Um, but the scenes where he's remembering like what happened before he died, like as he's come
Mhm.
back to life and he's in the old apartment, and all the memories come rushing back, and he's remembering he like couldn't save his girlfriend, couldn't save either of them, and that these men like really destroyed her as they killed her. And he's like feeling every bit of like that pain that she felt too, and like that resonates like so much more now to me than it did then. And it makes me think about how they've been trying to like make another Crow movie, for a really long time, and it keeps getting held up. Like they've had different people attached, different directors attached, they've had a script, and the script got thrown out, now this new script. And I think the latest I had heard was like, I think not since like something like 2018 was like the last I heard that
Mhm.
something was happening, and then that stalled out too. So I don't even know if it's even happening. But I was like, if they're going to do it again, because I genuinely, I mean, I would see it for sure because
Right.
I love, the mythology, the whole, storyline of the Crow. But the 1994 one is so perfect to me. um I would consider watching one where she actually comes back to life instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I mean,
know
it feels like, I mean, he got shot and killed, but like the
yeah,
worst happened to her. And like,
yeah,
uh,
like,
yeah.
and I mean, I feel like it could be, look at how Jennifer's body has like new respect and like new
Yeah.
life after like, and that was a movie about revenge, and that was a movie, I mean, it's honestly slightly different because Megan Fox, came back to life and was not a good demon. she was
Right.
she was also killing her best friend's boyfriend and trying to kill her best friend. um, but Amanda Seyfried, when she becomes demonic at the end, like her first order of business is to go kill the band guys who started this all. And like, um, there's just like a very interesting revenge aspect that very often gets handed off to male characters, which I have no problem with, but also like it could be an interesting, flip to it. And I'm probably biased because I worked on the show Dietland, which I feel like never quite got its due,
Hmm.
and it didn't get picked up for a season two. But with the way things happen in the news and the way people talk on social media, it's wild to me that it didn't get a season two because it was a little bit of wish fulfillment in it. Because in Dietland, there is a vigilante group of women that call themselves Jennifer, and they they kill bad men.
Oh,
They-
okay.
and it started because like the woman who created the group of Jennifer, she was serving in the military and came home because her 13-year-old daughter had been like assaulted by a group of men, and they weren't punished. Like, I guess no one was found guilty because of, whatever. And her daughter threw herself in front of a bus or threw herself in front of a train. I'm trying to remember.
Hmm.
No, but, died by suicide. And her mother was, so distraught and so angry. And she had all this military training and she had all these friends in the military that, like,
Yeah.
her next order of business was like, we're going to take justice into our own hands, and like if these men won't be punished by the law, like we're going to punish them.
Hmm.
And so in the news, like little, like every week there's like this person got killed, this person got killed, and this person has gone missing because they would kidnap them and then kill them, or like drop them off, like the god dropped them, I think some of the bodies they dropped off of like a high, like like an overpass on a
Oh,
highway,
okay.
just drop the bodies. Like, um and so but they didn't, I don't think they killed the men responsible for her daughter first, so it wouldn't be obvious. Like they killed other men too, so it was like men in politics, soccer player, like there was soccer players who had been accused of raping a girl,
Hmm.
and they had gotten off because of who they were, and they were famous and and rich and whatever. And so like these are the people that they targeted. And it was, I mean, it's very subversive, the show and the book that it's based on. And but it's very dark, it's very interesting, and it gets at like who gets to have revenge, like who gets to have their day, who gets to have justice.
Right.
And that's something, I think, I don't know, I think it's like a theme that a lot of people like in
Yeah.
movies and TV shows. But it is interesting to see like which ones people watch,
Right.
um, you know,
What do they go
and
for?
but yeah, so I think something could interesting could be done with Shelley's character if they were to redo The Crow. But
What if they
um,
did I just thought of this, not just a crow, crows as a couple coming and being creepy together, teaming
like
around. That'd be cool.
a group of crows is called a murder, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, the crow murder.
The Crow
That's
murder.
true.
Um, but yeah, but yeah, I mean, even if they just went the regular like reboot route and
Hmm.
just did it like the 1994 film,
Right.
I don't know if I would love it as much, but I would definitely watch it, and I'd be
Yeah.
open to whoever. I'm curious to see who they would cast.
Well, do you? I looked up every single person who's been attached to play this since
Oh, yeah.
2009.
Mhm.
Um, here we go. Bradley Cooper. That was one of the high profile ones.
Don't see it.
That was seen. That was like he was attached to it for like a year or two.
Yeah. I mean, I love him, but I don't see him
Uh,
as
yeah,
either.
yeah. Some of these I don't know. Mark Wahlberg,
Mm,
Channing Tatum, Ryan Gosling, James McAvoy, Tom Hiddleston, Alexander Skarsgård, Luke Evans, Sam Witwer, Nicholas Holt, Jack O'Connell, and the most recent one was Jason Momoa, who left it in 2018.
hmm. I like Jason Momoa. He's too big though. Like he looks like
They
a
look like they're going for
superhero.
big guys, like
Yeah,
for a bit of it, except for like McAvoy and
yeah,
Hiddleston could be both. But yeah, I'm just maybe someone less like lesser I know they want the name with it, but
yeah.
maybe
I can
somebody.
see Alexander Skarsgård because he has like the stoic
Hmm.
thing for him.
Yeah.
Because like it's more to me. I mean, like that's a list of like very good looking guys, but
Right.
and Brandon Lee was also very good looking, but um, to me, it's more about like projecting that like calm, stoic kind of I'm going to kill you now, like
Yes.
and I don't know, like Bradley Cooper has like a warmth to him in like the stuff that he plays. I just don't see it.
Hmm.
Um, but also, yeah, he'd be too old now
I think
too.
some of them were at times where they just wanted to latch to a franchise,
Oh yeah,
and that
that
was the first
I
thing
believe that.
offered.
Um,
There, we got to remember though, like Vincent Perez, Eddie Furlong, Eric Mabius, and Mark Dacascos have all played the Crow as well, because
yeah,
this is a franchise that I don't think maybe should have been franchise. I don't know. It wasn't that successful to be continued, but we got a theatrical sequel, which earned this movie made $93 million. It was a surprise hit and a big hit. Uh, so they got Crow City of Angels, and
right.
then got two straight to video movies and a TV show
Yeah,
out of it. So I've only seen the Crow City of Angels, but it was long ago. I haven't. I think I may have rented one of the straight to video ones, but I couldn't tell you a thing about it.
yeah. I definitely didn't see the straight to video ones.
Which had like Kirsten Dunst in one,
Yes, yeah, I think
Jodie
you're
Lynn
right.
O'Keefe, David
Yeah,
Boreanaz. Like there's some named people in these.
yeah. I didn't get to see that. The City of Angels. I don't think I ever finished watching it, but I should go back and try again.
It's on HBO Max.
No,
Uh,
all right. I will check.
which
You
I
know,
swear to
yeah.
my listeners, I'm not sponsored by HBO Max as
There's
much as I
there's
talk about.
a lot of
It's
good stuff on HBO
it's my
Max.
favorite streaming service. So, but yeah, so there. I mean, yeah, and I would think an important thing if when redoing The Crow, this is such a era, and I'll spin it back to the movie itself. It's such an era specific. Like this is a grunge goth staple of
Yes.
the 90s. Like
Oh
if
yeah.
you want to put like make a collage scrapbook of the 90s, The Crow goes somewhere in there for
Oh yeah.
sure. And
Absolutely.
I would try to make it of the like I think that the idea would be to try to make this dark brooding thing. But if
Hmm.
that's not you need to make it fit of the time. You need to find a music fad of the time to build on and go with that. And because I think that's just as important to The Crow. It lends it its attitude, it lends it its look, its feel, and I think you should do that if you're remaking The Crow. The City
Oh
of
yeah.
Angels was allowed to do that because it's of the same era, but
Right.
it's very informed by it, and it's got such a like Alex Proyas, who this is his first feature film. He'd done some music videos and stuff. He
Hmm.
had this he didn't pan out really as a director after him. He's still working, but
Yeah.
this and Dark City, which he did after this, which I'm also a really big fan of, just aesthetically pleasing, just costuming, lighting, city masterpieces. Like
Mhm.
they are outstanding. Like these are city, like I don't want to live in this city, but I want to like do a safe visit and kind of like get the feel.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Like, definitely don't wanna live there. Um, but I feel like I read somewhere too that after what happened on the set of The Crow with, the mishandling of the
Hmm.
props and Brandon obviously getting killed, that it messed with him mentally
Oh.
for a long time,
Hmm.
in terms of working, which, I mean, I imagine it would. Um, but yeah, like, I just, as someone who works on a set now, like so many years later,
Hmm.
it's just nuts to me that the safety protocols that I'm used to weren't even the norm then. That was the 90s. Like, how are you not being as safe as possible?
It was a rust shoot and a lot of not communication. I read like a detailed rundown of the events,
Hmm.
and it's just like, well, this guy switched this, and then this wouldn't go with this, but they didn't have time to go order this and this, and somehow there was a dummy bullet or something that
Hmm.
should have been switched out, was switched out, got put in, got locked in a chamber while other ones were not.
Yeah.
And poor Michael Massey, who is passed away like 5 years ago, but he's the guy who pulled the trigger
Yeah.
on it, and it haunted him forever. Like
Yeah.
he was still giving interviews talking about it as
Hmm.
as far as I can see in that. That's haunting. And it was during this there was the shot was during the scene where they were filming the flashback of the awful stuff happening. It's just a
Hmm.
nightmare to
Yeah.
think of.
Hmm.
Because he gets
Just,
shot at a lot in this movie, and I'm
yeah,
like,
he does. He
and
does.
you're like, which one? You have this sick game in your head of like, was this the one that did it? Was this the one that did
Oh
it?
my god, it's I know that. I think I try not to think about that when I watch it, and I was like, it was, because, like, in the back of your head, you're like, "Well, I because we've all read the thing about, what
Mhm.
happened." You're like, "This is the scene where it happened. Oh my god, is this the I don't wanna think about it. I don't wanna think about it." Like, and it's just it's awful.
Do you remember where you were when you heard about it? I do. It's weird.
I do actually, yes. I remember I would actually was at school,
Hmm.
and, I think it, like, grossly, like, raised the mystique of the movie of, like, everybody wanting to see it.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just also, like, the way they reported things back then, like,
Hmm.
to my memory, was, which is awful because I mean, we're seeing that a lot now too, in terms of, because 90s was like big for pop stars, and now we're seeing like them speak out about how they were covered in the news. But in terms of like entertainment reporting, I feel like I remember like headlines, being like, "Oh, it's a conspiracy. Like, his dad died on a set. Now he died on a set," and it was just like kind of like spiraling out of control, saying like someone was like out to get him.
Yeah,
Um,
there was a very big conspiracy. Like I dug into that hole for a bit
mhm.
when because I was early internet days, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah. Right, because I mean, because it feels that way, like, and then it's gross and disappointing, that it could be chalked up to just negligence, because, um, not that either way is good, because we lost, like, a young man who, had his whole life in front of him,
mhm.
which is just tragic. And aside from being talented, like, he was just a young man who should have been able to live his life, like, talent aside. Um, you know, the fact that it was just plain old shitty negligence, that, like you were saying, bad communication, just not, rushing and trying to save money, and someone not doing their job as well as they should be doing their job, and not talking to someone else about the job that they did.
Mhm.
It's like just a terrible, terrible chain of events that led to it,
Right.
that could have been avoided.
Yeah, and this isn't like this is idiot communicate. This isn't John Boorman having Linda Blair at the edge of a building during Exorcist 2 dangerous, like where it's like she's not even on a harness,
Yeah.
uh like this is just smaller production problems
Mhm.
because of how rushed, how little money they give, and
Right.
this helped
Yeah.
change that. But I'm still sure there's other issues nowadays that will come later on and such. And just, yeah. And,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So, like, I was on my way back home from spring break with my parents, and it was a breaking news update on the radio, and I was like, whoa,
God.
what?
Wow.
And then I was obsessed with they're gonna finish it without, like, what are
Yeah.
they gonna do? And then, what's crazy though, 1 year later, 1 year later, coming back on that same Florida trip we'd go on spring break when I was a kid, Kurt Cobain was dead.
Oh my God.
They
Oh
have,
my,
it was like exactly one, well, it's not to the day, but of the
but
week.
yeah, that week. Yeah. Oh my
And
God.
and that was the same trip, and breaking news, and in like 95, I'm like, nobody die,
Yeah.
hearing the radio in my parents' car on the way home. Like,
Seriously.
so yeah, just insane. I'm just like closing the door. But yeah, the dying, having to, like, and the thing with his father, for the listeners who may not know, his father was Bruce Lee,
Mhm.
and he died at a girlfriend's house of a medicine that was given to him incorrectly. He was not, so where they get confused with that a lot of the times, and this is so creepy, so like, you feel like somebody wrote the book of the world, or something, and we're just living it out. But his father did a movie called Game of Death. He was in the middle of that when he died. They finished that without him, with a double. And in Game of Death, he plays an actor who fakes his death by getting shot by what was supposed to be a blank on set of a movie, and goes, fakes his death to find out who's doing this and get revenge on them.
Mhm.
Oddly, a wicked premonition of his own son's demise.
Yeah.
Just wow. Like,
It's the exact kind of fodder that conspiracy theorists love.
if you tell somebody that, like, they'd be like, you're full of shit. Like in 1983, like, yeah, it's gonna, yeah, that's, yeah, only in a movie. No, real life's crazy too. But yeah,
Yeah.
just, it's so crazy. And then they filmed. And do you know who his stand-in was, that they would have his, that he would stand in for Brandon Lee?
No.
Winds up being, he didn't go by this name then, but it's Chad Stileski, who directed John Wick 1 through 4.
Oh, yes, yes. I've met Chad. I worked
Yeah,
on Wick. Yeah. Oh my God. I didn't know that was him. Wow.
yeah, he stood in, and he went by Chad Stowe something. It was a different
Okay.
last name.
Okay.
But yeah, he
Interesting.
wound up being the guy who filled in for, and they did, it was early. So this is not only that, it's a huge moment for digital effects,
Yeah.
because we
Oh
had
yeah.
Jurassic Park was like the year before, and everybody like, what? And this is
Yeah.
when it got used cosmetically, and they would replace the face in scenes, in a couple of moments, and that technology still gets used today. Like, they used it on, like, just to, well, this movie's now almost 10 years old, but Skyfall, when Daniel Craig's riding the motorcycle all across the train, it's a stunt man, but they put Daniel Craig's face, and
Yeah.
if you're looking, you can tell. But that they still use that, and now they're
And
creating people from the dead.
yeah, they what's it called when they did that Game of Thrones scene, the where they're yelling shame and ringing the
Oh
bell,
yeah.
and Lena Headey is walking. They had someone do it naked,
Hmm.
and then they put her face
Oh, okay.
on the person. And so they both, like, so I think from what I read, I'm trying to remember, I read whole like rundown of how it worked. And so the body double walked naked, and they shot it with them. And then Lena did it clothed, but I think in like some kind of a bodysuit or something. I'm trying to
Okay.
remember what she had to wear for it, or maybe like something that was
Just the
like akin
green.
to like a green screen
Okay.
suit, like something, like, I'm trying to remember exactly. But so like she had to walk it, but they had to like walk it like exactly the same way, so I guess they could like match it up as well as possible. But yeah, but it's her face on somebody else's body.
Okay. Actually didn't know that about that one.
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot of like behind the scenes research. I just kind of watched Game of Thrones and went with it as it went along. But that's really cool.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would have been Lena Headey because she's got naked in a lot of
I
movies and stuff
know.
before.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I actually thought about that. I don't know if she ever said why that scene or whatever, but also it now seems to be coming out that a lot of the actors on Game of Thrones were not like super thrilled about all the nudity and
Mm,
just like did it 'cause, like Amelia Clark. I think she was like super young and
right.
inexperienced when she first got the part and just like said yes to anything. And I feel like she sort of hinted in interviews lately that like certain scenes, she's like, I don't know that I really needed to not be dressed for that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if this is what I gotta do.
yeah.
That probably that kind of pressure. And who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean, I've read all the time about how Kate Winslet like fully believed in doing the nude scene in Titanic,
Mm-hmm.
but that the problem was like after that, her agent kept getting scripts where the character took their clothes off because they were like, okay, so she'll do it. Like she's one of those people who will do it. So now we'll send her all the shows and all the movies where the actor gets naked, and I think she's like commented on how that like became a thing for her that they just expected her to do because she did it once.
Gotcha. Yeah. I worked on a movie where we were shooting a corpse that was supposed to be nude, and we were in the morgue or whatever, and she got there, and then despite having a signed thing, changed her mind. But despite the director allowed, figured a way he could shoot around it and make her not feel that way. Well, despite many people on the set getting very angry that she did that, and it cost us an hour and a half of time
Yeah.
debating it and calling agent and people. But you know, sometimes you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is what I gotta do, or something like that. But
Yeah. It's fun. That's like anytime I've had to do something on set, like I've if things weren't explicitly explained to me in like terms
mhm.
of being a body double, like I've asked the questions and
Yeah,
but I mean I guess I hate to say I'm lucky because it should just be the norm, but I guess in a way I'm lucky that I've always worked on very respectful productions where that's been the case. And even when I had even on a very low budget movie, and I had to stand in for an actress who was going to be naked in a bathtub.
hmm
The day before, they were like, "Do you have a flesh tone bodysuit?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Does anyone have one of those?
I
Does anyone say yes to that question?" And
had one.
you had one. Oh my god. And
It was for a Halloween costume one year.
okay, so that's
I went as Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs,
oh, okay, fair.
and I had a butt.
I was gonna say I don't know if I want to know why you had one, um,
Now you
but
do. You didn't even have a chance to tell me no. So
so they were like, not sure what we're gonna do, and I was like, well, I mean, the thing is, you're not really like showing her. It's just like the sense is that she's not dressed, and
hmm
I think even I think she was mostly gonna have on like bathing suit bottoms anyway. She was just not gonna have something
okay.
up top. But they also weren't doing any sort of like full frontal shot of her. It was more just like, I guess, so you wouldn't see a line of anything because no one's wearing, a bathing suit in their bathtub. Um, so I had said, I was like, what if I just wear a bathing suit, like a bikini or something, or that has straps that I could pull down, and then you can see skin. And then I'll just, I'll like be in a robe all day, like in and out of the tub. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. So I ended up bringing like 3 bathing suits with me because I figured like after a while I want to like change into a dry one, like depending how many hours we're going to take to shoot this. Um, but yeah, like there was always like someone from wardrobe like waiting with a robe for me, like when I was like stepping in and out of the tub. And um, my joke has always been, although I might have told you this joke before because I've been telling it for so many years, but I think the first time that I was ever a butt double, which was on The Good Wife,
hmm
I had joked with everyone on set that I was actually felt more respected at work without my clothes on than I had fully dressed in 7 years at an office job.
Yeah, I mean, when those nude scenes happen, I mean, it becomes a big thing. I think we might have talked about that before.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
mean,
it
and this
sounded
is like
familiar, but yeah.
pre-intimacy coordinators, which is now like a big job on set. Like
Mhm.
HBO won't shoot any shows without them. And I think Showtime and a lot of the other cable shows, because I mean, I know they work on network shows too, but network shows aren't doing as racy of scenes.
SNL did a sketch with an intimacy coordinator, I think. Didn't
Yes, I
they?
think they did.
I think.
Um, and I worked with one for an HBO show, and she was a complete sweetheart and so nice. And I didn't have to work with her in terms of a scene, I should say. She was just on set, and we got to know each other, and she was really cool. um, but yeah, it's become a really big thing. And the thing is, um, you know, I'm lucky that I never felt like I needed one for any of the stuff that I did, but I can see where, like what we were talking about before, with like actors being like, I guess I have to do this, like I guess
Mhm.
I should just do this. um, with them feeling like they understand what's going on, they read the script, they know, but then they get to set and sort of have not even necessarily second thoughts, but have a different idea of like what was supposed to play out versus what the director wants.
Mhm.
And then you have an intimacy coordinator who can just be like, well, like what are you comfortable with, like what are you, like what would you do in this scenario, and like how, and then like, you know, work with the director to be like, okay, so how do we do something that keeps everyone comfortable, looks good on film, and satisfies everyone involved. Like this is what the writer wanted, this is how the director wanted to shoot it, this is what the actor's comfortable doing, like how does that all coalesce into, you know, the shot.
Right.
um, and you know, like I said, um, I haven't really had to do anything like super extensive. It's more just been like shots of parts of my body. And for the most part, most of the time it was on a cable, and I'm sorry, not a cable show, a network show. So there's only so much that can be
Right.
shown
Yeah.
anyway. So, but also like, I think it was a little bit liberating as someone who grew up as like such a goody two shoes and like
Yeah.
have to go like show my ass on television.
It's all over the place. The world has seen it.
The world has seen it, and I get residual checks for it all the time.
Next stop, streaking at the Mets game on the field.
I'd get banned for life.
Oh my. Back to the movie.
Yeah,
Where did we go? Oh, the digital stuff. That's where we
the
came from
digital
with that.
stuff. Yeah, that's where
But
we went off.
um, so the movie, like I guess Proyas wanted to do it in black and white, but of course got rejected.
Yeah.
And and it kind of feels fitting too because the comic book apparently is largely and to no surprise influenced by Joy Division and The Cure, which I never read the Crow comic book, but seeing it come to life here,
Yeah.
pretty sure that's a
Yeah.
thing. Did you read comics at all in the 90s
I
version?
didn't really.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't really a comic book person. My brother read some comics. I would say, like, honestly, the only comics I probably read were
Hmm.
Archie comics.
Gotcha.
Um, and because I loved all of them. That's why when they made what's it called, Riverdale,
Riverdale.
right?
Hmm.
Riverdale is like the dark Archie teen drama. Like
Twin
that's so up
Peaks
my
Archie. Yeah.
alley. Because I loved Betty and Veronica,
Mhm.
and it's funny because like they've made Jughead like hot on the TV show, but in the comics he's like such a dope. Um,
Well,
and
I think, oh, is it? I think it was, she still writes a little bit now. It used to be a bit, more pronounced, but Britt Hayes, she called the show Hot Archie That Fucks.
yes,
that's,
that's
that's what she
exactly.
called Riverdale.
That is Riverdale. But yeah, I think those were the only comics I really read,
Okay.
and you know, which is a shame because I think and it wasn't even that my parents sort of instilled this in me. It was just sort of the sense that like comics were a boy thing, and so I never really got into it.
Gotcha.
But you know, actually though, in college I had a very interesting class called Texts and Contexts, and during one of our during one part of the semester we actually did read some comic books. Although actually, I think they were more graphic novels. Like there were some comic books and some more graphic novels, and I found them very interesting. And I always meant to like read more, and I just never did. But you know, someone was saying to me recently, because I think I was talking about horror or something, and they were like, "There's a lot of good horror comics if you want to get
Mhm.
into it." Like, just dig deep on Twitter or the internet, and you can get some really good suggestions of stuff. So at some point, I think I will probably become a comic person, but
There you go.
for most of my life, I really haven't been. I guess that's why also I don't get too wrapped up in the fights people have about Marvel and DC and the movies versus comics and stuff. And
You can't say any of them aren't your thing or are bad. They're all perfect. All the Marvel movies are perfect. They're the most
yeah.
cinema. But no, I was gonna say because my heyday of comic book reading was the '90s, and I didn't read like The Crow, or there's a big push and a change in the type of heroes that came in the '90s. Like this is when the Punisher was really popular. You had
Yes.
Ghost Rider, the Max, Deadpool, Spawn, Grifter, Lobo, those Rob Liefeld type guys, where they would like be really jerky dudes, cuss, and they would kill the villains and stuff. And it ended up like it like leaked into Batman, which I was reading. So in the '90s, they broke Bruce Wayne's back in Nightfall, which you might remember being portrayed in Dark Knight Rises. But he
Mhm.
had a guy named Azrael who he was working with. He was this like guy named Jean Paul Valley, and he
Mhm.
was blonde and he was younger and he was an asshole. And he got to take up the moniker of Batman when Bruce
Mhm.
Wayne's back was broken. And it was the Batman people being like, "All right, assholes, you saying you want to kill her, Batman? Here you go." And it was terrible. And Batman had this like mechanical suit thing, and he told Robin like basically fuck off, and he went like crazy. And so meanwhile, it took like 2 years, but then they had Night's End where Bruce Wayne came back, defeated Azrael, because Azrael is the guy who defeated Bane, and then
Right.
Bruce Wayne comes back, defeats Azrael, becomes then Bruce Wayne's like, I need time off, and Dick Grayson became Batman for a bit there. But
Mhm.
this guy like turned me off from reading Batman. Like I was just not in
Oh,
this type of guy, but it was the writers going, you'll see what happens. And yeah, I got turned off. I didn't want Batman to be that way, but there was a desire
right.
to make Batman more edgy.
Of
And
course.
and they've done that since then. I don't keep up with my comics are like in it, gone, in it, gone. Like I'll find something, pick it up, read it, and
Yeah.
but I'm not like I'm not hardcore, and I'm probably not reading anything that anybody finds cool anyway. But but yeah, so this was a time like this. There was like yeah, so we got these dark heroes of the era
Yeah.
with names like Eric Draven, like the
Er,
most goth name ever.
I know. And also, what you're saying about the Alex Proyas wanting it to be black and white is
Mhm.
funny because even though it's not, the movie feels very black and white.
Oh
Like
yeah, you could see
it's
it
so
easily going that way.
grayscale.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
the entire film, like there's there's really hardly any color. When you think about it, everything happens at night for the most part.
Hmm.
Like it's very
Yeah.
dreary during the day. Um, there's no sun. It's although spawns my favorite line. Can't rain all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And
No sun to the end of the movie.
yes,
Like
no
it,
sun to
yeah.
the end of the movie. And yeah, it's just like but it highlights everything. Like the buildings look
Well, he
dark.
can control the city because he made a model city instead of shooting. See, so he's able, like you mentioned, the cinematography. That's
Yeah,
because he's able to just go through. They even do a car chase with models, which you can't really tell,
yeah.
and it makes it unique and just has its own orthodox way of moving the camera around, which I love. It's just really
Mhm.
nifty.
Yes, I love that. Like that car scene, the car uh where he you know sends what's his name to his death, and
Hmm.
while the other one watches, and it's yeah, that scene, and the Stone Temple Pilot song is playing,
Hmm.
and I think it's Interstate Love Song. Is
It
that
is Big
right?
Empty. We'll touch
Uh
on that in a sec. Yeah.
yeah. Um and it's so perfect because, like you were saying before, like the music of the time and where the city is, and that it's raining all the time and it's grunge and it fits that whole aesthetic. And then a Stone Temple Pilot song comes on and you're like, ah, this movie is perfect.
Yeah. Like the soundtrack it's a staple. Like
Yeah.
I was had Stone Temple Pilots, The Cure, Nine Inch Nails, Rage Against the Machine, Violent
Mhm.
Films, Rollins Band, Helmet, Pantera, Jesus and the Mary Train, all on one album.
Yes,
It was
I
a
remember actually I bought the soundtrack.
yeah. Yeah, I so we'll talk about Stone Temple Pilots in the next one, but Big Empty was huge. Like
Yeah,
that song just hit me when it first
yeah,
came out because I was like not that into Stone Temple Pilots, and then that song just hit me. I was like, these guys rock. Like, and
yeah.
this wasn't supposed to be the song.
No, it
They
wasn't.
they had to yank their old one from when they were called Mighty Joe Young, called Only Dying, and they're like, that's not appropriate. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got scrapped and Big Empty, a song that the first single from Purple.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I heard it like because I used to have this little station that would play alt rock after 10 p.m.
Mhm.
And this came on there, and I was like, "Well, this is Stone Temple Pilots," and
Mhm.
it's like, "Damn, this song's really good." And then they use it in the movie, and it's just simple little card. Like I'm like, "All right," I want it to like mean something, but yeah,
I mean, at the time too, like I think everyone in my age group who's like, too cool for school,
Mhm.
was just like, oh, they just stuck the Stone Temple Pilots song in there just to be because like they're cool at the moment. Um, but yeah, I loved Purple. That was a great
Mhm.
album. There's
We will love on that in a little bit.
Yeah, there. I mean, at the time in the '90s, like the main music we all listened to, because we weren't quite yet at the Britney Christina boy band like
Right.
pop era. Um, it was like Pearl Jam's 10,
Mhm.
Pearl Jam's 10, Pearl Jam's Versus, Corduroy, like
Vitalogy, yeah.
yeah, Vitalogy. Um,
Dude, we're in the corner of like grunge was about to start going away and becoming alternative nation, which became
yes,
like, which I talked about it with earlier this year on an episode, which was just like a vomit bucket of just like all these music styles that no, why would they go to like why would swing music be followed with Limp Bizkit?
I just what
It's
I know,
alternative.
I know. It was so weird. It was a weird time. Um, and then I remember like our friend, we had one girl in my friend group who was like obsessed with Pearl Jam, and I always really liked Pearl Jam. Then I think they were initially like my favorite, partially just because like I think I knew so many of their songs. And then so it was like Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, Smashing
Mhm.
Pumpkins. Um, I mean, those were like the top three, I think, because they were on the radio all the time. Like in like because the radio station that everyone listened to around here at like 9 o'clock every night had a top 10,
Mhm.
and they were all over it. Um, but I'm trying to think. I mean, like yes, Nine Inch Nails, like we loved, and Nirvana. Um, but yeah, like I think. Oh god, the album names too. Like, what was the Smashing Pumpkins one? Melancholy and the
And the
Infinite
Infinite Sad, the
Sadness.
double album, it's like the best double album.
Yeah.
I know there's the White Album, but the best double album of the 90s, like that thing, I wore that thing out. That was the
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins were my first concert. I
Really?
saw too, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah, I loved them.
With
Um,
Garbage, they opened for them. So
Garbage.
technically, I guess you'd say Garbage, but I went for the Smashing Pumpkins, which I had to wait because the keyboardist OD'd and they kicked Jimmy Chamberlain out, and my concert
Oh,
got delayed
good
for.
lord. Okay. Well, that's like I feel like years later, friends of mine went to go see Stone Temple Pilots, and it started really late. And essentially, the story was that Scott Weiland had like
I have a
flatlined
story.
backstage, and then came out and performed, and it was a terrible show. Like he like couldn't enunciate any words, but it was literally because he had been like semi dead like 40 minutes earlier.
You're gonna hear a similar story when
Oh no.
when we
Oh
go to that, but
yes.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, this album was just and I think I honestly I also enjoy the Crow City of Angels soundtrack. That one had
Oh They do have a good soundtrack. Actually, even though I don't remember ever finishing the movie, I do remember a good soundtrack.
It had the whole cover of Fleetwood Mac's Gold Dust Woman, which was pretty rad.
Yeah.
And Filter had a good one on there. It was a cool album. It's not quite the have the legacy of this one, but it's a nice complement to it.
Yeah.
It came out a couple years later. All right. So we'll move on to what else? We good? We got any more on The Crow?
I think I'm all talked out. And let's see, we talked about moving your dead. What if and I say I'm dead and I move, and that's
Yes.
my favorite stuff. Can't rain all the time, which is actually, I've always said,
Mhm.
if I become successful enough that I don't need to body double anymore, I want to get a tattoo. And the tattoo I want to get is like on my ankle that says it can't rain all the time with
Well,
a
there
little
you go. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Excellent.
So one day, hopefully, I will be able to get that tattoo.
All right. Excellent. All right, we'll move on to what else. This is where we discuss anything we may have taken in recently: movies, books, TV, maybe something we wrote, maybe something we produced, maybe something we're working on. So, Danielle, what else?
What else? Okay, so I actually watched a bunch of stuff in the past few days, and I watched the new Steven Soderbergh No Set and Move,
I
which
watched
was
that too.
yes, which was written by the incredible Ed Solomon, and I loved it. I thought it was like this perfectly paced, very tense. What's gonna happen next? How many people are fucking how many people over? Like, who's going to come out on top? I don't understand what's like. You have to take down the big four because they're the ones who are
Mhm.
capitalizing on all this senseless death in the first place. And um, I just, I loved it. I thought it was really smart and really well done, and also what a great cast.
Yeah, and I thought like didn't it look like a lot of the shots could have been like covers of like old 40s pulp novels too? Like certain like moments and stuff. I'm like, that looks
Mhm.
straight up like a cover.
Yes.
Like there was
Yes.
one of like Amy Simons with a gun in her face, like, and I was like,
Yes. Oh my
that's when I
God.
started noticing it. I was like, wait, that's a cover. That's a cover. That's a cover. That's a cover. That's a cover.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I guess, also like there's certain scenes that looked very like sepia toned,
Mm-hmm.
that just sort of had that old school look to it. I mean, I love the cars. I love old cars in period pieces. Um, but it was just, yeah, I just thought it was a great script, well shot, like, kept me hooked the whole way through.
From the guy who was supposed to retire like 8 films ago,
Yeah.
continues to wow. Like,
Uh-huh. And I love, because I feel like this is a thing that Soderbergh does in general, but I think just because I've come from working on so many like straight TV shows where everything is about coverage, like
mm-hmm.
when they're filming two people talking, like you're seeing, like they'd be seeing my face and your face, and like a two shot of us talking from the side, and then like over your shoulder to me, like over my shoulder to you. And like that's how conversations get covered. And there's so many scenes in the movie where someone's walking and the camera's behind them, and like there's like attention to it, and it's not that they're not talking, because sometimes they are, and but you don't need to see their face
Right.
to like understand like what's happening in the scene. And like, I don't know, sometimes I really like that style versus like covering something to death,
Well,
like.
it's something a friend of mine, and he's on the commentaries that come on here once a month. Yancey Burns has always talked about. We discuss like people need to like make conversations in films interesting, and they used to be like how you shot everything used to almost be important,
Yeah.
and conversations used to look more interesting, and they've kind of gone by the wayside of just being
Yeah.
like simple coverage ones that you said, and that's leaked into film a lot of the
Yeah.
times, and that's why some
Yeah.
people may not. Well, we talked about Marvel, why they may not think the Marvel movies are as high art cinema because their conversation scenes are just kind of Captain America. They think costume filling out the frame is interesting enough, and
Mhm.
you got to shoot it good too. But
And let's see, what else did I watch? I finished watching Hacks on
oh
HBO,
yes,
which I loved. Jean Smart should win so many awards this year. Oh my God, she is so perfect as this Deborah Vance character. Did you watch it?
Yep. That was one of my what else like a couple weeks ago. So go,
Okay.
yes, keep talking.
Yeah.
I'll talk about hacks. Yeah.
Oh my God. The last episode made me cry. But I think they totally nail the Ava character of like someone who actually doesn't even seem to be that good at their job,
Mm-hmm.
but like thinks that they're a lot better than they actually are. And Deborah Vance sort of serves as this, like bringing her back down to earth. Like I love that speech. I think it's in episode 2 where she leaves her in the desert and with the car,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, I'm actually good at my job, and Deborah Vance is like, that's like the baseline. Like
Yeah.
that's you need to like be amazing at your job, and you need to like continue to do it like for years, and it only gets harder. And I just sort of love her whole, maybe makes me sound like an old grouch, like in terms of like, oh, you have to like pay your dues, because I don't mean it that
Well, no,
way.
she's someone who was told they were amazing once and think they just stay amazing all the time. You have to continue to deliver. You were amazing for that,
Hmm.
but now you got to be amazing for these things.
Yes, and like she doesn't do any research when she like goes for this job interview. She can't get hired
Mm-hmm.
anywhere, and like she's like pissing away her one chance to get hired. And it's wild to me, that, I mean, I'm sure they're going on purpose, like entitled Gen Z character,
Right.
because that really gets driven home, like that she doesn't even like look up this woman. And also, how does a TV comedy writer in LA know so little about stand up? Like she knows nothing about stand up, and she goes out there and she thinks it's like awful to be going to like a world renowned Las Vegas residency, and she's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm like this, like I'm too good for this. And I'm like, that's like a dream job for a lot of
Right.
people. Like, what are you doing? And so I think this set, like I think they in a way make her very unlikable for like the first few episodes, and I think that's purposeful. But it's interesting because I think, in season 2 maybe we'll see her develop into a good writer, like that she
Right.
could, I think there's like potential that she could be a good writer, but she's actually not that good
Yeah.
right now.
And I like they have that daring writing of the show to leave it in such a cliffhanger that's going to be a mess to unravel, and for like we'll figure it out season 2. I
Yes,
like
that
that. A lot of people play it too safe, but this
mhm,
one, like the
that's
show Succession, guns it for that finale, and they're like, we'll figure it out when we get there. And I love
yes,
that. Love
exactly.
that.
And then the third thing that I watched recently was this new show called Sex Life on Netflix,
Okay.
with Sarah Shahi. She's the main character, and it's based on a book. Um, so like it's actually like a, a somewhat true story, and so that's a wild show. Have you watched that?
No, I have not. So I'm 2 for 3 on your.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, it's straight up pornography. Like, it's like, oh, every episode is just like Sarah Shahi's breasts are just
Oh,
there. And there's also, if you Google the show, like most people will be saying, there's a lot of headlines that are like that moment in episode 3, because that moment in episode 3 there's a full frontal on a man,
oh,
which you don't usually get to see. um but it's, yeah, it's a lot of sex, well, hence the show title, Sex Life. But I actually think it has some interesting things to say about relationships and regrets and marriage, and reconciling like your past with your present, and like adulthood decisions you've made, and like things to that nature. I don't want to give away too much in case you want to watch it. um but like there's like soapy outlandishness, but there's
okay.
also some really interesting things going on in the meantime too. Like I do hope they get a season 2, because I am curious to see where it goes. um and yeah, I don't know, it's like there it's it definitely seems to me, I kind of I usually try to wait till I've finished watching something before I start
Right.
reading all these articles and reviews and stuff, so I don't want it to like color what I'm
Inform me like how you're gonna. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I do the
how I'm
same
gonna view
thing.
it. And so I only just started reading some stuff today, and I kind of want to read more, just because most of the stuff I read today I was just curious about the book that it was based on, because I'm like, oh, maybe I want to read the book
Mhm.
now. um, and I think a lot of the purpose was to explore like female desire and how that plays out, and how we don't really get to see it that much in terms on TV and in film, where you like the woman who's thinking about stepping outside her marriage. Usually that's like straight to being a villain.
Mhm.
It's like, oh no, this woman's a cheater, she's a terrible person, like she's about to hurt someone, even if you don't even know who the husband is in whatever you're watching. And instead, this seems to take that trope of like a woman who's fantasizing about another man and tries to make you understand why, versus
There's
immediately.
countless male tales like that.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
right. Because like there's plenty of things where you're like, oh, I forgive the guy because like he really loves the woman that he's about to be with. And in this it's more like, oh, I empathize with her because she's not sure she made the right choices in her life. But then, and even when you get mad at her for certain things, you don't hate her, you're just like, like communicate with your husband, or like, don't call this guy back, or it's more like, because you like her and you like want her to be happy. And
Mhm.
I think that's a fine line to walk with a plot like that. So I think in that respect, if I feel that way, that means it was well done.
Excellent. I'll have to check that out. It was not on my radar, but now it is. I my what else is I'm late. I'm a bit late to this party, and when this drops, it'll probably sound even later to this party. But Mayor of Easttown,
Ah,
I finally got through my things to get to start that and finish it, and it's really good.
yeah.
It's like it's that typical Twin Peaks formula of young girl murdered in a small town type, but
Mhm.
done really well. Like that's, I don't care if you knock off things off, be your own, and it's got its own flavor.
Yeah.
And she's a awesome character. I really liked Mare. I'd watch her do another mystery, but how much can you have in a small town? I don't wish
Yes.
ill of that town to come
I
to
know.
life again for me to watch their townsfolk, their population go down. But and I'll tell you this. So I was watching. I was like, I'll watch this slow. I'll watch this slow. So I got to one night where I went 5, 6, and 7. Like I went right through the end. And then the seventh one, I was like, all right, well, I was late at night. It was probably like after 1 in the morning. I was like, all right, I'll just watch it till they cap off that cliffhanger, and I'll go. And I'm like, oh damn, there's more to this. I like 40 minutes to wind down and see everything go. I was like, all right, well, we'll just stick this out. And it was really cool. Yeah, really into it. Great, cool cast.
Great
Yeah,
cast. Yes.
you have I big Guy Pearce fan. And Evan Peters has a nice, interesting role in there. Just a lot of I like just the inner working drama. So yeah, Mayor of Easttown. You've probably seen it, but and yeah, that's on HBO Max. I know. I know.
But it's also one of those things, once you know the ending, kind of makes you want to go back and rewatch a little bit of the
See if it
beginning.
fits
Sort of,
together well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it like you said, Kate Winslet was fantastic. I felt like it dealt really well with grief.
Oh yeah.
Whenever a show really kind of nails, like dialogue wise, or just even portraying what it's actually like or what it feels like, I'm always so impressed, because it's really hard to do, to like actively show someone grieving without making it tiresome, because that's one of the things in I think in real life is that people don't ever want to admit that it's like a day-to-day process, because you don't want someone asking you every day, how are you doing,
Right.
is everything okay, like, because no, it's not, but you're surviving. And you know that survival looks different for different people, and that's why, she sort of like avoids facing that the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
And then that widow asks her, like, does it get better, and she's like, no, it doesn't, it's terrible, like every day. And then the final shot of her going up into the attic, I thought was so good, like,
Yeah.
because like I really didn't see that coming. Although I guess I probably should have, but you know, when she wakes up, when she's sleeping next to her grandson, and she wakes up and you know her daughter's gone off to college and you know driven out west and whatever it's happening, and I kept thinking like, how, you know, how does this end? She's just gonna like go sit outside and like vape, sit at that table, and then she, you know, goes into the hallway and starts to take down the ladder. And I was like, oh, like I felt like my heart stopped because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And it was in that moment that I'm like, oh my God, please don't do a season 2 because this was perfect. Like this
Right.
was absolutely perfect. And like you said too, I wish no more ill will to that poor little town. Like,
Yeah. Just like with people bitching about like more Star Wars and everything. I'm like, you had to stir up their peace. That's why they're not in good places right now. You had to Star Wars, not Star Peace. Like you got to shake up that, you know, so your happy ending you had before is gone.
yeah.
Now you have
It's,
all that. You shake up
I
people's
had joked because like I liked all the characters on the show so much. I was like, I think we're on episode 4 or something. I'm like, oh, if this gets a second season, like let's just like, you know, kind of segue into a nice little gentle comedy, like a small town comedy, and just let them all be funny.
focus on the 30th anniversary of that basketball team. Make it a little more lighthearted. Things are different now than the last time. Yeah,
Exactly.
do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, that'll do for today. Danielle, I'm so very happy and honored to have you return to the show. It's been
Well,
great.
thank you for having me.
Please let everybody know where they can keep up with you and your happenings around the webs.
The best place is on Twitter at LSEP, ELLESEP. You can also go to my website, which is daniellesep.com, and read all of the things that I've written. And, you know, send me emails if you would so desire. If you'd like to buy my book that is in its early stages of infancy development, it's called Losing It. And it's barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. I believe you can also request it from your indie bookstores because it's just been out for a long time now. So it's probably not floating around on the shelves lately, but you can ask for it. And yeah, I think that's probably it for now.
Excellent. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written work at whysobblue.com. There's more from The Brandon Peters Show this week. But until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film chatter.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at brandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at brandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.